You have the floor, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me here to be here today. My name is Joel Thuna. I'm a fourth-generation master herbalist and the general manager of Purely Canada, my family's small business. We directly employ 10 people in our building, and we indirectly help employ many more Canadians through our distributors, brokers, farmers, and supplier network, which is in every province. For 135 years, my family has manufactured what are now called NHPs in Canada. We are a compliant company with over 500 product licenses. In my 50 years in the industry, I have seen the landscape change time and again. I testified before this very committee 26 years ago regarding the inappropriateness of Canada's regulations treating NHPs as drugs. This committee consulted with Canadians and issued a report, Natural Health Products, A New Vision. In 1999, the Liberal government's Minister of Health, Alan Rock, announced the report and all its recommendations were accepted by this House. The report's guiding principles included that NHPs are different in nature from and must not be treated strictly as either food or pharmaceutical products. NHP regulations must not unduly restrict access by consumers. NHP regulations must not place inappropriate costs on industry, consumers, and government. Information regarding decisions and regulatory system must be readily available to NHP stakeholders. As an industry, we had high hopes that the resulting legislation and regulations would once and for all be appropriate to NHPs. The NHPD was set up, and through wide consultation, Canada achieved the enviable. We had laws and regulations that protected consumers, gave them access to the products they wanted, all with industry buy-in. Businesses were licensed, and products required pre-market licensing. Repeatedly, we have heard that Canada had regulations that were the envy of the world. Over the past 4 years, multiple laws and regulations have been introduced without meaningful consultation or proper economic impact assessment. This patchwork system is causing myself and my colleagues to question the viability of Canada's NHP sector. I was asked to estimate the cost to my small business. We estimated the first-year cost to exceed $500,000, with annual costs exceeding $300,000. These days, no small family business can survive with these additional costs. Classifying NHPs as drugs is inappropriate. One complication of this is putting NHPs under Vanessa's law. This is using a jackhammer to swat a fruit fly. Existing measures such as inspection, stop sale, seizure, and license suspensions are rarely used. Regulation without enforcement is meaningless. Health Canada has the power to suspend licenses if required. Industry is happy to consult on appropriate regulations for recall. New labeling requirements based off of drug labeling are to come into force. These regulations do not provide any new information to consumers, but rather make the packages confusing, increase costs that are going to be passed on to consumers. Additionally, these regulations will reduce the likelihood of package recycling, needlessly increasing our industry's carbon footprint. Foreign actors see the easiest and cheapest route for Canadians is through the personal use importation framework. A significant portion of Canadians now buy product not captured under Health Canada regulations, exposing them to unacceptable risks. I have in the past and again questioned Health Canada. If a product is potentially harmful, how is it potentially harmful only when manufactured in Canada, but not if imported? The big sticking point I have is that Canadian companies are investing to be compliant, yet are losing a lot of money and a lot of jobs. Canadians who buy NHPs from outside Canada are bringing in a combination of products they can't get here and products they can. They do this to reduce their shipping costs. This is destroying Canada's retailers. So you understand the depth of the problem? There are foreign companies that have warehouses in Canada housing their non-licensed products so their customers can get fast, no-border issue shipments. This means no tax revenue and no Health Canada oversight. In the end, Canadians want what they have today: access to safe, well-made products. Bill C-368, along with extensive and meaningful stakeholder consultation prior to new regulation and law introduction, is a good starting point to bring Canada back to the guiding principles which are supposed to guide all legislation and regulations for NHPs.
With rounds of questions, beginning with the Conservatives for 6 minutes. Mr. Moore, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to all of our witnesses that have appeared today. And thanks also for your suggestions on amendments. Appreciate you coming with those. Mr. Thuna, we had a appearance last week by the Minister of Health, a very animated appearance, and he made some fairly outrageous claims, one of which certainly does not reflect what I've been hearing. But I would like your comments on it as someone who's very vested in this industry. He said that the new regulations on natural health products would only negatively impact, and I'm quoting him here, people who are negligent and wildly out of compliance. So, in your opinion, is this a true statement, or does the minister not accurately reflect the state in Canada of the natural health product industry?
What I can say is that I can echo what has been said before this committee, is that our industry is, on the whole, wildly compliant. We don't sit around and question how to avoid them. We question how we can keep up and stay with the requirements. And what I can say with regards to not having anything to worry about if you are compliant, we live in a free democracy. And in a free democracy, that's a false premise. It's akin to asking, if you're not doing anything wrong, why should you have an issue with random stops and searches? I do have an issue with them. And the reason I do is I live in a free country that's supposed to be based on appropriate laws, appropriate regulations, and appropriate enforcement, so that we respect the many Canadians who fought and died for our rights to live free.
Thank you. Now, I think you mentioned that you have 10 people employed at your location, and that's certainly reflective of what we're hearing and understanding about the industry in all corners of our many communities across the country, that a lot of mom and pop type shops, small businesses that are impacted by these regulations. So could you give some of your insights from your perspective on how Bill C-368 will help those shops and family-owned businesses like your own?
Bill 368 will make it so that we have an environment similar to the environment we've been living under since the creation of the Natural Health Products Directorate. And that is an environment where we know what is required of us. We know essentially what the goalposts are, and we know how to meet these requirements. The problem is, once you start moving the goalposts and keep moving them, it's uncertain. And with uncertainty, you're virtually creating a guarantee that companies that are trying to stay in compliance will not be physically able to. We're a small company. In fact, we're actually larger than most of the companies in our industry, based on a number-for-number basis, but we're still a very small company. We're very proud of that. We do an awful lot with our small staff, and we're proud of that. The biggest challenge we have is keeping up and maintaining our high level of compliance with the number of people we have.
Okay, and we're very concerned with keeping as many businesses, small, medium, and large, as possible in Canada. In today's day and age, businesses can move, and what we've heard from industry in a survey that was done is that up to 20% of businesses would consider moving if in the current context. So if Bill C-368 doesn't pass, what does the business case in Canada look like versus other international competitors?
There's not much of a business case for Canada if this bill doesn't, and if if everything Health Canada and the government are trying to put through or say they're going to put through happens, there's not much of a case for staying in Canada. And to add to that is the aggressive nature which American states are pursuing us.
Wow.
I, for one, have been approached by multiple U.S. states willing to give me the star, the sun, and the moon to move. They are willing to help in immeasurable ways economically to make it a no-brainer decision.
Okay. And finally, you had mentioned in your opening comments that the government's approach is taking, I'm quoting you, a jackhammer to swat a fly. So can you elaborate a bit on that, on what could be done rather than this approach?
As a member of the industry, I would be more than happy to sit down, and I know many of my colleagues would as well, with the government to work out a realistic and appropriate recall measure and system for natural health products. But having said that, before that even begins, the government, through Health Canada, should actually start using the tools they have. Having regulations without enforcement is like saying, nobody go over 60 kilometers an hour, but there's going to be no radar, there's going to be no police officers. We're going to just hope and pray that you do. And how many of us think that's actually going to happen?
Thank you, Mr. Tuna. Thank you, Mr. Moore.